What's up, everybody? Jeremy Gerard from Mythic Customs here with one of my short customizing tutorial videos. Today I want to actually address a topic that I see lots of people ask about Mythic Legions customizing, especially people that are probably new to the hobby, and that's whether or not they can use Marvel Legends heads and body parts and so forth with Mythic Legions. It's a very reasonable ask. I get why people want to do that. Marvel Legends are fairly plentiful. They often go on clearance at Amazon. You can buy them fairly inexpensively, and they do have some great looking head sculpts, especially for like some females. Because Mythic Legions doesn't have a ton of like unhelmeted female heads, it's really appealing to want to maybe bring in some of those Marvel Legends heads. I have some definitive thoughts on this. Quite frankly, I don't think Marvel Legends parts by and large work well with Mythic Legions. There are some exceptions. I've actually used them a couple times in my customs. I've got a few examples behind me here that I'll talk about. But by and large, I don't think that it's going to be something you use a lot of. That being said, let's kind of address it. So the first thing you need to know about Marvel Legends versus, I would say, Mythic Legions is the scales are different. They're both considered 1/12 scale, but the reality is Marvel Legends are more like 6-inch size figures, where Mythic Legions are more like 7-inch figures. Now, the Mythic Legions 2.0 figures, which are like the more slender, the females and the elves and so forth, they're closer to the Marvel Legends scale. So if you are going to be doing any swaps between Marvel Legends and Mythic Legions, you're probably going to be using those 2.0 Legions. Like I said, most of the time when people are doing this, they're looking to put female heads from Marvel Legends on Legions bodies. So that's probably what they'd be working with anyway. The other thing you should know is when you do get the head off of a Marvel Legends figure, it will not pop onto a Mythic Legions as is. The size of the neck ports are definitely going to be different. So for you to get that head on, you're going to want to Dremel that that Marvel Legends head. I did a video on this channel a while back about Dremeling heads, so you can, add custom heads or add heads from other toy lines onto Mythic Legions. If you're not sure how to Dremel, it's really not very hard at all, as long as you take your time and you're careful. Check out that video if you're interested in more on that topic. But you will need to do some modification in order to use that head. Now, again, I mentioned that the heads are smaller, and the reality is you could argue that Marvel Legends heads are actually the scale they should probably be for Mythic Legions. So if you look at a figure like this is Faustia, right? She has a fully helmeted head. Well, if you compare this to one of the unhelmeted Mythic Legions heads, this is the unhelmeted head that originally came with the Delphina figure. If you compare those two, you're probably going to figure out that there's some proportions that are off. For this helmet to go on top of a head of this size, not really going to fit. The reality is that's kind of part of the Mythic Legions line. Every line, every toy line, artistically has a certain aesthetic. One of the things I like to do with my customs is try to make sure that I'm honoring the current aesthetic of Mythic Legions. If you've ever watched my Mythic Conversation show, I talk about this all the time. It's, for an example, one of the reasons why I don't do like bloody customs. I've done a few just to do it, but by and large, I never do like battle kind of damaged, bloody, gory type characters, because the line itself doesn't do that. So I've always found that if you have a figure that looks wildly different from the aesthetic of the line, it stands out. And maybe that's what you're going for. Personally, with my collection here, I like my customs to blend in with the factory produced figures, so I try to maintain that aesthetic, including large heads. That's the reality. Is if you look at the Mythic Legions unhelmeted characters, whether it's a 2.0 female, whether it's a 1.0 like Barbarian male, like Atlas the Conqueror or Otho, their heads are definitely on the large side. If you compare the heads to a helmet, you will say, like, how would they actually cram that helmet on top of their head? Hey, it's a fantasy line. It's okay. I can buy into that. But that being said, I find that if I put a a Marvel Legends head on one of these bodies, it looks a little too small. So I just popped the head off of that Faustia figure, and I have a head here. This is a Marvel Legends head. This is the head that originally came with, I believe, Spider-Woman. And I'd have to Dremel this out. I haven't Dremeled this all out and everything, but even if I pull the neck post out, you can kind of see a little bit how it looks. Visually it's not bad. Like, it's not so small that it looks wildly off. And like I said, realistically, that head is probably more realistic to fit inside of that helmet. However, if you do that, you stand it on the side of one of the figures that does have the normal style head, or the normal sized head, the aesthetic is going to be a little bit off. This figure's head looks even larger by comparison when you stand it next to one of these Marvel Legends. So that's one of the things that I would caution you is think about your overall display. You absolutely can do it. You can Dremel that head, you can pop it on the body. You put that head on the body, you put the helmet under their arm there, like they're cradling the helmet. That's a really cool display. You just might want to think about what you're displaying it alongside of, so the figures don't look totally out of whack with each other. Again, sometimes it does work. This is a figure that I did that is one of my kind of female vampire hunters. So I did a whole series of vampire hunters that I called the Lost, and I actually garbed them in the purple and black type armor of the vampires. I like the idea of the hunters looking like the prey. That particular set that I did, she's the only female in that set. Everybody else, I have a dwarf and a barbarian and a wizard and an elf. Because there are no other unhelmeted females, she displays alongside them and she looks okay. This head is actually from the Marvel Legends Silk figure, and because the hair is kind of flowing, it looks a little large anyway. So aesthetically, this one worked for me. Similarly, this is one that I did kind of as like a half elf, almost inspired by the Dragonlance character of Tanis half elven with the bearded face. This is obviously a Marvel Legends Namor head. It already has that elf-like look because it's got the pointy ears that the Atlanteans have. It looks to me really, really good on this 2.0 style body. I made this to be kind of a half elven prince type of character. And it absolutely works. I had to Dremel it, but it absolutely works on this. So that's kind of what I was saying, where there are a number of parts that you can use. For instance, the Build-A-Figure of the Odin son, the Thor Allfather type figure. And this is a much older Build-A-Figure. But that unhelmeted Thor head, Dremel that, and that actually makes a really good older barbarian figure. I've used that in the past, and there are a number of others. I've also seen a lot of people take Marvel Legends figures, and because the hair is a separate piece on these heads, they'll actually remove the hair from the head, and then they'll take a Mythic Legions figure, and one of the head inserts that's inside the hood, those heads, they're not meant to come out. They're glued in there, but you can get them out with a little bit of heat and determination. If you pull that head insert out and kind of shave it down a little bit, you actually can pop on some Marvel Legends here. One figure I've seen people use a lot for that is the Hela figure that came in the 2-pack with Scourge from the Thor Ragnarok movie. There's actually a couple different Hela figure or Hela heads in there, 2 different ones that have the hair down. That hair comes off very, very easily, and it can allow you to kind of kit bash together, I guess, some other Mythic Legions unhelmeted hair down female heads. So there's definitely a lot of possibilities possibilities that you can do. Another one I'll show you, another piece that I used. This is a druid, like a barbarian druid type character that I actually did quite some time ago. And the robe he's wearing is from a McFarlane Halo figure. But because he's a druid, I wanted him to be a little light on the armor. So I wanted him to have unarmored arms. Now, the torso doesn't matter to me because it's completely covered by the robe, but these arms that I've used, these are actually from a Marvel Legends Thor figure, like the Odin Son type character, not the Builder figure. The one I think it was supposed to be in the comics after he had, been unworthy or something. But these just pretty much pop right in. I did put a little bit of blue tack on there just to make them fit a little bit better, but these just pop right in. Now, most Marvel Legends limbs do not do that. This was kind of a diamond in the rough that I found. I got the figure on clearance primarily to use he came with a really cool tattered red cape type thing. I got it to use for that, and I ended up being able to use the arms as well. So there are some possibilities out there. That's, one of the great things about the Marvel Legends line is it's so deep. There are so many different pieces that it's inevitable that you're going to find some that work. So the short answer to can I use Marvel Legends parts on my Mythic Legions customs is yes, you can. You absolutely can do so. But I would caution you to think about why you want to do it and what you're trying to create. They are a very different sculpture style. That's one of the things about Mythic Legions is because, Four Horsemen Studios and Eric Treadaway are, the sculptor on really all of these pieces. They definitely have that same aesthetic. They work so well together. A lot of the third-party companies have worked really hard to honor that aesthetic in the items that they put out. Marvel Legends isn't concerned with that. They've got their own aesthetic. They've got their own style they're going for. They're not as crisp. They're great for what they are, but they're very different kinds of figures. So even outside of the size itself, some of the details, some of the ways that they're painted and so forth, they're definitely going to look different. So yeah, you can do it. Just be mindful that it is going to stand out on your toy shelf, and who knows, maybe that's what you're looking for. But give it a shot. If you pick up some inexpensive, Marvel Legends, you can absolutely do that. And there's a whole laundry list you can look for. There's an old Valkyrie figure, not like the MCU Valkyrie, but one that came out a while ago. I believe it was in the original Hulkbuster Builder figure wave. You can find that figure. That's a head that I know a lot of people use. She's got two braids. I don't like that head just because I don't like the sculpture itself. I do love the braids though. I've actually used that head and cut the braids off and glued it on the inside of one of the Mythic Legions hooded heads. So it looks like the braids are kind of coming down. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do. Give it a shot. Hopefully this video helps you out, gave you some ideas, and answered that question for you about the usage potential of Marvel Legends. If you did dig this video and others like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments. I always love to read those and respond when appropriate. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, consider doing so, or letting others who you think would enjoy the channel, tell them about it as well so they can subscribe. Until next time, if you use any of these tips, tag me in the post because, as I always say at the end, I can't wait to see what you make.